Welcome back to another episode of Words of the Wise. Today I have Chief Bratton from Fortville PD. He has 25 years total in law enforcement. Welcome to the show, Chief Bratton. Thank you for being here.
Thanks, Paige. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Of course. So I was asking you how long. You're like 25 years. You're like, it's been a long time. So give us a little bit of background.
I never grew up being the guy that wanted to be the police officer. I really didn't know what I wanted to do. I got out of the service, kind of bounced around a little bit, ended up working kind of at a job that didn't really want to do, just kind of stocking shelves somewhere.
Mhm.
And then my sister's mother-in-law was like, "Hey, do you ever think about being a police officer?" And I'm like, "Never thought about it." And she's like, "Well, I think you'd be good at it." So she got me appointed with the right people, and we started that path. And 25 years later, here I am. I've kind of done a little bit of everything throughout my career. So I've enjoyed it. There's a lot of good times. There's some stressful times, but the good times have outweighed the bad ones.
Does she get a management fee?
No, she does not.
I'm sure she would have liked that, but
I'm sure she would have too.
I think that's great. I always get asked the question too, how did I start working kind of in this space, with law enforcement? I think it's unique. And I always kind of say the same thing. I'm like, I never had any intention of doing that, but now that I'm here, it's been the best thing ever, and I
Yeah.
think sometimes we land right where we were supposed to be, but we didn't even know we were supposed to be there in the first place. So I love that you had someone that was like, hey, like, I think that you would be really good at this. And it probably speaks to the qualities of who you are as a person, thinking that you would be good at the role. And now, 25 years later, you still love the job. And I'm curious what you think the secret is to still loving what you do 25 years later, even when you know that things are hard and stressful.
Yeah. Things do get hard. Things do get stressful. As a young cop, I was told by an older cop, mentored a little bit, that try not to bring what you did at work home and give yourself that separation, which I feel like for me, I've always tried to do that when the boots come off. Um, I try to shut down. And yeah, sure, there's things you still think about. There's things you wish you could have changed or done differently. But I've always tried to allow myself that personal time or family time
Mm.
and not be 100% cop 100% all the time. And I
Yeah.
think that's a hard thing for officers to do.
Was that the moment for you? Like as soon as you took your boots off, that was kind of that mental shift for you? Because I have talked to some people who have had like specific things where they're like, as soon as the uniform came off, or as soon as, I got home, I had one guy that said, as soon as he would walk home, there was a tree in their front yard and he would like touch the tree. And he's like, all right, like I'm leaving that, and I'm able to then step into my home life and be more present. Was that the moment for you where you're like, okay, boots off? Mental shift.
Yeah, I try to be. I mean, usually when I take my boots off, I'm like, okay, I'm done for the day. I'm home. I can relax. Obviously there's times that you sit and you ponder and you think, and everybody has a bad day.
Mhm.
So the goal with the bad days is maybe just go for a little extra drive before you get home, before you bring it home to your family or your friends or your kids or anything. There's times I've driven around for hours on end after shift, just trying to clear my mind before I get home, so I don't have to relay the same frustrations and the issues that I may have had during the day onto my family or my friends or kids.
Yeah, thank you for sharing something that's worked for you. I've had other people also say that they'll have a journal in their like car, and
Hmm.
if they're really stressed or even just on a day-to-day basis, being able to like write stuff down and like be super like uncensored, and like all the stressful things, and then they would close the notebook, and that would be helpful for them too. So I appreciate you sharing. Like for you, it was driving around to decompress and clear your mind, and I think there are always things that are going to work for different people. And I think the more strategies and tools we share, then there's always going to be at least one thing someone can grab onto and resonate with. So I appreciate.
Absolutely.
So I know wellness is something that's really important to you guys. And one of the things that you said to me that I thought was really interesting is that you are focusing on breaking the suck it up mindset. Can you talk a little bit about this?
Yeah. So, being in the military in the 90s, that's basically I did that before I became a police officer, and that's what it was. You hurt, suck it up, or go take some Tylenol, or do that. You get into law enforcement, you have a bad day, and for lots of years, you just hear, everybody has bad days. Just suck it up and move on. And it doesn't, for a lot of people, it doesn't help. There's no way just to suck it up and put it someplace. You have to compartmentalize that somewhere. And most of the time, officers compartmentalize that in a negative fashion, and then they find different sorts of outreaches or different sorts of ways to get rid of that negativity. But it's usually in a negative matter, whether it's going to the bar, just driving too fast, just doing some things that they probably shouldn't be doing as much. Where I feel like if they had an option at the end of their shift or somewhere along their career for somebody to say, hey, I know you had a bad day, I know it sucked, and I don't need you to suck it up, but you want to tell me the sucky parts of it, and maybe we can discuss and find some healthy ways to figure that out. Or do you want to go to the gym, or do you want to go for a walk, or do you want to just go sit in the car and listen to the radio? Something that might be able to help the younger generation not to have to believe they have to suck it up. They have to have leaders that care about them. They have to have leaders that are willing to accept that change. For a long time in law enforcement, it's, well, if you're not mentally ready, you can't do the job. Well, everybody has bad days and everybody has mental struggles. And even though you have those, you can still come out and be a super high performer. And I feel like if the younger generation understands that, yes, you can be a high performer. You can come do your job every day and do it very well and very effective, but still have bad days, and you're able to talk about it. I think those bad days will lessen because they'll understand why they're having those, and they'll find healthier ways to get through the bad stuff.
Yeah. Well, I also think it's so relatable if people can come forward and say, hey, like I am excellent at what I do, but I'm also human. And I
Right.
also, struggle and things are difficult for me. And, here is how I'm able to get through those things so that I can keep moving forward. And I think the more we can have those conversations, people understand that they're not alone when it comes to the hard times. Because I think a lot of times, especially people who are at the pinnacle, and I just had this conversation recently, there are people who are at the top who make it seem like it was just an easy road to get there. And then the people who are struggling to get there are like, man, like, what am I doing wrong? Like I feel like everyone else had it so easy. And I think the difference is that the people who make it look easy, they're not willing to share the hard parts. And so it isolates everyone else, and them thinking that they're alone in feeling the struggle. And so I think the more we can have those conversations, the more we can feel that connectedness. But I love that you said, instead of suck it up, you say, tell me the sucky parts, and then let's have a solution based conversation on how we can move forward. I find that
Right.
to be far more effective than just like shove it down and go get a drink.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, if, and I go back to the military stuff a lot. And I have a lot of friends that have had, some issues after the military, and you talk about it and they're like, I don't need somebody at the top of the hole telling me how to get out of my hole. I
Mm,
need somebody in the hole with me, digging out with me and showing me what I got to do, and sitting beside me to understand what I'm going through to be able to move forward and get out of this hole. And that resonates to me because it makes sense when you say, and cops are very A-type personality. We're all very strong, outspoken people. Um, and we're going to tell other people to do what we want them to do most of the time. Very rarely do we look at our peers and say, hey, look, I'm going to tell you how to do this. I'm going to tell you how to be a top performer. I'm going to tell you what training classes to do. But rarely do we get down there and show them, like, hey, we can do this together. Like, if you want to grow professionally, you want to move up in the ranks, maybe we can sit down and have a program together that will help you understand why sometimes you have bad days and why sometimes you fail. But we're going to do it together. And I think that's the key is, as a leader, you have to be able to do that for your officers.
yeah.
Um, and if you're just going to, law enforcement as a whole does a very bad job. We promote and then train.
Mm,
We should be training then promoting. So all my young supervisors and my lieutenants, and I tell them, I'm like, look, you have to understand, some of these, you have to understand your emotional intelligence. You have to understand how people learn. You have to understand all these things, and you have to care about the people in the ranks below you, because if you don't, it's going to show. And they have to be able to know that you're willing to get in that hole with them and help them dig out when they have a bad day.
Yeah. And also I think, can you remember where you came from?
Yeah.
Because I find and um I think that there was somewhere along the way where I was taught, the higher you go, the more perfect you should um let people think you are, right? Like you should have this perception that like you're perfect and you know everything. And I think the
Mm,
opposite is true. I think that
it
as
is.
as you start to rise through the ranks or as you start to like promote or whatever career you're in, obviously you and I are in different career paths, but um I find a lot of respect for the people who are at the top who are like, I remember what it was like to be grinding it out. Like I was you and I remember it. And yes, like I am here now and I did promote, but like it wasn't an easy road. And here's what I went through, and here's how I can support you. And, I made a lot of mistakes along the way. And, here's how you can learn from me. Can we have that open dialogue no matter where we are in our career, and I think that when you remember where you came from, it makes it easier for you to relate to the people who are there right now. I think sometimes you forget that, or people maybe purposely try to forget, and
Yeah.
try to like still like stand at the top of the mountain of like, look how great I am, and everyone else is down below. And I don't resonate with people like that. I really want people who are going to be humble, who are going to be, open to sharing all the things, the messy parts and the successes, because I think we can learn from both.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I tell all the guys, the girls on the department, I tell, as I'm getting close to retirement, they're like, what do you want to do? Do you want to do anything when you're done? I'm like, no, I don't. I want to go and just be retired. What do you want to be remembered by? And honestly, I tell them I want to be remembered as the cop's cop.
Mhm.
Like I want them to know that I'll jump in the trenches just as fast as they will when it gets hard, and I will go do all the dirty work. Whether I have, a gold star on my shoulder or nothing on my shoulder, I will still jump in the trenches and do the dirty work and get down there with you and support you and help you any way I can to achieve what success you want. Because
Mhm.
everyone has a different level of success. Some people just want to be great at investigations. Some people want to be great at poetry. Some people want to be a police chief. Some people just want to be, the best trash collector they can be, which is great. You should reward all their successes and help them in their struggles, is my opinion.
Yeah. There's a story, and I'm going to totally butcher this, so, bear with me. I know the moral of the story, and I think it's really relevant with what you just said. But have you heard about like the guy in the hole that fell in the hole? Have you heard this story before? Can you say it better than me then?
Is that the one? Keep going.
Okay.
We'll see if we're talking about the same story.
So it's this idea where he like falls in a hole, right? And he's like calling for help. And, there was like, um, a spiritual advisor that came through. I don't know if it was like a pastor or, and he was like, hey, like, help me out. And he's like, I'll say a prayer for you. And like kept walking. And then like someone else walked by and it was like his financial advisor or something. He like tossed money in there or whatever. And he like kept walking by. This is a similar story.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then his friend comes by and like jumps in the hole with him. And he was like, hey, like, you're supposed to help me out. Like, why are you here? And he's like, because I've been here before. And like, I know how
Yeah.
to get out and I'm going to help you. Right. And so this idea is, how can we be that person?
Yeah.
How can you be a friend? How can you be a mentor? How can you be the person that's willing to jump in with someone and be like, hey, I've been here before, so I know the way out. We're gonna do this together. And I think that we isolate ourselves so much and we're all kind of operating on our own island. And I think we become so self-involved with our lives and the things that we have going on. How can we expand our vision a little bit and look around and see, who are those people that are maybe in the trenches right now? Do they have to proactively ask us for help, or can we just jump in automatically and be like, hey, I notice it. I
Yeah.
see you. Let's go. And I think it has to do with what you said before about knowing your people. And I know you guys are a really tight knit agency, and that's something that you take a lot of pride in knowing each other really well and creating a culture where you guys look out for each other, but also a culture in which people are comfortable also asking for that help if they need it. Can you talk a little bit about, as a leader, how you're able to create a culture where people feel comfortable, and how are you leading by example or teaching other people to lead by example?
So creating the culture, it's different with everybody. Everybody is a little bit different in the way they like to approach, but you just need to know your people. You need to know, what drives them, what upsets them. There are some officers, if they mess up, I can flat out, hey, you're really messing up today. Let's fix this. But then I could go tell the same thing to a different officer and they're going to completely shut down.
Mhm.
You got to switch that one up. So you just have to know your people. You have to know when they're having an off day. And you should be able to tell that. I mean, I sit in an office the majority of the day. Um, but not one day goes by that not one of the officers stops in, sits down, chats with me for 5 or 10 minutes, tells me what's going on. Hey, the kids are great, this or that, and they'll come in and they'll, hey, can I close the door? And I know they're having a bad day, and I'm okay with that. Um, I don't have anything so pressing in my job right now because I have a great leadership team. I have great officers. I don't have anything so pressing that I can't take 5 minutes of my time and sit down and listen to what their problem is for the day.
Mhm.
And sometimes I feel like, I'm just the old man giving the advice, but I also look at it as they trust me enough to come to me as their boss and say, hey boss, I'm having some financial difficulties, marital difficulties. I'm having some, I'm having an off day. Well, what started that? Let's talk about it. And I think it's great, and I'm proud that we can do that in my department. Um, I appreciate that every one of them can come and do that, and some more often than others.
Yeah.
Some may feel more comfortable, some maybe not so much. But I always want everyone on the department to know that I'm going to give them my best, and I'm going to care for them just as I would if I have to go take a call out on the street and care for someone in need. I'm going to do the same thing for the officers and for all the administrative staff that work here. That's my goal. We're really good about taking care of others in police work, but we don't take care of ourselves and we don't take care of each other in law enforcement. And that's the stigma I'm trying to break is like, hey, it's okay. It's all right if we sit down and we discuss things about our feelings. Cops don't talk about feelings. We hide them.
Mhm.
That's our job. That's what we do. We don't show feelings on calls. We don't show remorse. We don't show regret. We don't get angry, but we have feelings, and we have to be able to sit down and talk about our feelings and understand that everybody has them, and we're going to have good ones, we're going to have bad ones. But for my team, I want everybody to know that I'm here to listen. I'm here to help them. Paige, have you ever seen two cars sitting side by side,
Yeah.
two police cars?
Of course.
You know
Yeah.
what they're doing? They're complaining about their equipment or they're talking about their administration. And I always tell my guys, look, if you got an equipment issue, let's talk about it. But if you have something to tell me, bring it to me. Don't come to me just to complain, but come with a solution. And I feel like that gives them stake in the department, And if they can give me a good reason why we need a different box of Kleenexes or a better PBT or a better radar system, and it makes sense, and we can do it financially, then everybody's a stakeholder, I feel. And I believe that builds a lot of trust within the department. They all feel like they can come and say something if they need something, or if they have a bad day, they can say it. And I appreciate it. I'm not the wizard of being the best boss. I'm not the wizard of being the best cop. I'm not any of that. I'm the guy that's going to listen, though. When they have a bad day, I want to know. And then I'm going to figure out a way we can try to fix it, or I'm going to find them the resources to send them to start working on getting that problem taken care of.
Yeah. I love that you just made it seem so normal because it is. You
It should
know,
be.
it should be, yeah, for you to be like, hey, everyone has feelings. Like, we're
Yeah.
human, we're not robots here. Like, it's normal to be stressed or sad or frustrated or angry or all the things. It's normal to have those things. And then for you as leadership to be like, I'm an ear always. And I think that you hear a lot of people say that, like, hey, like, open door, like, I'm here. But I think the question is, are you doing that? When
Yeah.
people walk in, like, are you setting things down? Are you giving them your time and attention? And I think the more you do that, the more trust you build. And then people start to believe you when you say these things. And then that's where you start to build that culture. So it sounds like that's what you guys are doing.
Yeah. There's nothing worse than talking to someone and, hey, how are you doing today? You ask that question, then instantly you pick up your cell phone and they're like, well, whatever I say at this point does not matter
Mhm.
because they're focused on something else. Or you're typing on your computer. Like I said, if it takes 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, I don't feel like my day's that busy. Or I can work a little bit late this afternoon if someone needs to sit down and talk to me. So I always try to make that time.
I have said this more than once on this podcast, but that is one of my biggest pet peeves, is when someone asks me how I'm doing and they don't stick around for the response because they don't genuinely care and they just keep walking. And before you can even respond, you see the back of their head. Like for me, like I would rather you just completely ignore me than come up and like check a box and be like, how you doing? And you really don't care. I've also struggled with this before. And it's a fine line, right? Because I'm also an outsider coming in. So like completely different like roles here. But I've had plenty of times where I've done like keynote speaking or like briefing or roll call training, and I walk in and everyone's on their phones, everyone's on their laptops. And I'm like, how much of this is that they're just not paying attention and how much of this is like crucial to work, And I'm like, I can't say anything, right? I just have to keep going. But I think for us as individuals, can we be more mindful of that? If we are listening to a presentation or if we are having someone come up to us and speak to us, can we just be more mindful and present in our own lives or decisions, and can we make sure that we don't pick up the phone or we don't like, type on our laptop, and can we make sure that we're giving people the time because we can't control other people, but we can control ourselves. And so I've tried to be really cognizant of that because it does, um, I'll at least say that the first part is one of my biggest pet peeves for sure. Like,
Oh, yeah.
but I think I've been more cognizant. So if I go to a training or if I go to, a first responder conference or whatever that looks like I don't have anything where I need to be texting anybody. I put my phone down so that I can make sure that I give people my attention because I think that they deserve that. And like, how can we make sure we're showing up for people? But it's hard. It's a nuanced thing in some cases.
It is. In active listening, you can kind of listen to what people say. Oh, how's your day? And they say, oh, it's been okay, blah, blah, blah. And you're listening kind of halfway.
Mhm.
But are you truly active listening? Are you listening to your people? Are you listening to people you come across on the street? That was one thing that was taught to me as a really young cop is like, you have to listen. Whether you show up and even knock on the door yet, you're still listening to what's going on. Like if you're getting a call for a domestic disturbance, you need to listen.
Mhm.
You get a call for a out of control juvenile. You need to listen before you even talk to anybody because you'll get more information there than you will after you knock on that door. When you knock on that door, they know the police is there and they're going to be quiet. But if you listen prior to, so I think that's something that's kind of been ingrained in me, even as a young cop, that just listen and you have to pay attention to what people are saying, not just listen to listen. You're not listening for those key words.
Yeah.
You're listening truly to understand what's being told to you.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's a difference between listening and hearing,
Oh, yeah.
right? And I'm sure everyone has heard a spouse or a romantic partner at some point in their life when you're having a conversation with them and they're like, you're not hearing me. Like maybe you're listening to me, but you're not like actually hearing what I'm saying. And I think that there's a difference. Like you have to be able to like truly hear and listen when you're having conversations with people. And our time is so valuable. And I think that it's a sign of respect, when we can give someone our time and we can show them that we're fully present in the moment, which can be hard. We're busy, right? But I think that it's really necessary to make sure that we're giving people that attention. And I put that in a silly example because I think everyone can relate to that. I
Oh
definitely
yeah.
can relate to that. But
Right.
yeah, I think it's important. And, can we check ourselves? Can we notice when we're just waiting to speak? Can we notice when we're checking out, we're thinking about other things? Can we notice if we're distracted? Can we notice if we're on our phone? Can we notice if we're just checking a box? And then how can we make steps individually to be better?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think your own emotional intelligence and understanding how you respond to things makes so much more sense when it comes to listening, when it comes to proactively communicating with people. You have to understand you. You have to understand how you do things before you can really understand what someone else is trying to portray to you.
Yeah. And I know the conversation of emotional intelligence is something that's actually come to the forefront. I think within the last couple of years, it's a big conversation right now. And I've had a lot of chiefs ask, can you train it? Is it teachable? Or is it that you just have to learn through experience and mistakes? And then the question is, how do you teach the really, really young guys and girls who are coming into this profession? How do you teach them emotional intelligence when they maybe don't have the life experience or the work experience yet? And so I'm curious what your opinion is. Do you think it's trainable? Do you think it's teachable?
I do. I was fortunate to go to the FBI National Academy and I took a class on emotional
Mhm.
intelligence. And I think mainly it's just self awareness. Like you have to understand you, you have to understand how you function, you have to do all these things. And I think for a young person, a young officer, you can teach them some of those things. Sure, they're absolutely going to have their own experiences on how they do certain things. But I think if you just let them know, hey, maybe you should be more aware of how you're speaking, or maybe you should be more aware of what you're doing with your hands while you're speaking to someone, or, are you on your phone? I think if you just give them those little clues and they start to become a little more self aware, I think that's a way of teaching them to be able to do that.
Yeah. Yeah, I like it. And I agree with you. I think everything is teachable and trainable. Of course, I think that you're always going to learn from mistakes and you're going to
Oh,
learn
yeah.
from experiences, but I do think that it's all trainable. So I appreciate that. And you were right. When we were talking before, you're like, the conversation's going to go by so fast and we have so much to cover. So I do want to touch on your wellness programming, and I'm just going to kind of list some of the things that you guys are doing. And then if you want to add anything to that, feel free. But you guys are focusing right now on three areas of wellness. So mental, marital, and financial. You
Mhm.
have resources like peer support. You have 2 mental health days a year. You have SISM debriefs. Can you give a little bit of insight, maybe into some of the things that you have found to be really successful? I'm really interested in the marital piece and some of the things that you guys are doing in that aspect, but also what is your why or your ultimate goal when it comes to building out this wellness program?
So, part of it is we have EAP that covers, anything financial, maritable, or marriage, relationship, children. I mean, it is so broad. You can call them and ask them anything, physical, mental, psychological. And the only thing I get is a report that says you had 2 employees show up this month. And the officers can appreciate that because they know that that person is not going to come to me and say, oh, well, Officer Smith has marital problems again, or girlfriend problems, or he's drinking too much, or he spends too much money at the casino. I don't get any of that. I just want to know that the program is being used and we're investing our money wisely.
Sure.
Um, SISM, that's been around for a long time, debriefs. And I think that's a good thing. I don't, I'm not a big fan of, I've been to several to where it's just you pile all the cops in one room, you go over the incident, and you ask everybody what their feeling is afterwards. Nobody tells anything. They all want to posture up, and say the cool things. So all their peers think they're the cool guys, which I did it too. When I was a young cop, I didn't have any feelings about that. Absolutely, I did. I think it's better when you break it down I have peer support groups that they can either come to someone on our department. I have a working relationship with the Fishers Police Department and the chief up there that if my officers need peer support, that and they don't want to talk to anybody in my department because they're afraid something might be said, or they're upset about one of their coworkers and they need support there, they can go up there and talk to them in their peer support groups. And the only thing I get is the same thing. Hey, one of your officers came up, talked to one of my peer support guys, and that's it. Unless it's a matter of them harming themselves or others, I don't get to know about that. And I think that's great for the officers because they know they can trust who they're speaking to.
Mm-hmm.
Indiana has a very strong fraternal order of police, and they have peer support groups. They have CISM teams that will send out on critical incidents. They're really, it's great to know that there are all these things in place that we can call as a leader or a chief of police, and we can call other departments and say, "Hey, I need help," and they'll jump in. Like I can call 10 different departments today, right now, and say, "Hey, I need help on this right now," and I'm going to have 10 different departments show up. There is no ego involved, and whether that's a high stress call, a SWAT call out, whatever, or it's, "Hey, some of my officers are hurting because we had this incident. Can you send some people that they can come talk to?" And they'll do that. So I think that's great. And I think the important thing is the trust. If the officers don't trust their administration to know that they're not going to try to backstab them and send them off to a fit for duty or something like that, they're not going to talk to anybody. They're just going to shut down because they know that their career's in jeopardy if they're going to send them for a fit for duty because they had a bad day. Obviously there's some things that are required by law. If they have that bad of a day that we have to report, and we probably need to send them to see someone. But I feel like as long as it's not that bad, we can talk to peer support. We can send them to a psychologist, a counselor, a therapist, or whoever we need to. I've offered officers to go spend a month in Montana at a treatment center, and it wasn't for drugs or alcohol. It was for PTSD and stress and anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
I've offered to send them down to Florida, paid. Hey, we'll pay for the trip. We'll pay your salary while you're there. Just show up. Just go get some help. Whether they take that, that's up to them. But honestly, if you don't offer those, and someone's having that bad of a day, you're doing it wrong as a chief, in my opinion. You have to give them an opportunity it's like if they break their arm, we'll put them in a cast, put them on light duty for 6 months. Great. When their arm's healed, they're great. Same with their mental health. If they're having a bad mental health month, you need to give them that support and offer that to them in some way that they can get better and they can come back and do their job properly.
Yeah. What is your why or goal behind everything that you do? And I kind of know the answer already because we talked about this before, but if you could boil it down to maybe a single sentence or a couple sentences of what is the why?
I think the why for me is, I was told early in my career to suck it up. There were some critical incidents that I went to that were stressful. And as I learned more about myself and I understood more about critical incidents, and as I gained experience and went to all these training classes, I understood that there's a need for us to process that in a healthy way. And I was able to process those things in a healthy way. I've had a great career. I'm 25 years in, retirement, whenever. But I feel like if the younger generation gets started earlier, maybe they may not have seen some of the struggles some of the older guys have seen, the alcohol addiction, the relationship issues, the money issues. If they understand the why earlier and they understand that there's places or people that can help them, they might use those and it will lead them to a very secure professional career.
Love it. Thank you. For that younger generation, and you already shared some words of wisdom earlier, but What words of wisdom would you share with them? If you could go back with all the knowledge that you have now and speak to your younger self.
Like I said earlier, when the boots come off, the job needs to get turned off.
Mhm.
So many young law enforcement officers live, breathe police 24/7. You've got to take a break. Don't go work all the part-time gigs when you're off duty. Don't tell everybody, oh, yeah, sure, cop 24/7. Most states, most cops, they're on duty 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Take some time for yourself. Take some time for your family. Do the things you want to do and enjoy them, whether it's go fishing, go play golf, go play cards, go watch TV, watch a movie, do whatever. Take time for yourself. I was always told to don't live where you work. You may end up having to arrest a neighbor, which if you bought a house next to your neighbor, now you're arresting them for domestic, there's going to be some issues mowing the grass every time. Somebody's not going to be happy. The last one, take care of yourself. Not only cops hit the gym all the time. I mean, physical health is just as important as mental health, but mental health, I feel like, kind of outweighs the physical health. Because mentally, if you can't be strong enough to get through the hard times, physically, your body's going to fail because your mind's not going to make the right decisions. Whether it's go to the gym or eat right or whatever, if your mind's not in the right place, your body's not going to follow. So be mentally strong, take care of what you have to take care of. If you need help, ask for it, and have a great career.
Thank you. Thank you
You're
so much
welcome.
for your time. I really appreciate you coming on here today.
Yeah, no problem. I appreciate you having me.
Of course.